That's why I'm going to press live on YouTube. Okay, go ahead. I'll tell you when I see it. You're good. I see you on Twitter.
I hit retweet first, though. Okay. Yep. Very good. He's ready.
And welcome in to the first mock draft of the 2022 season year draft cycle. Chris Schubert, Kyle Crabbs, Joe Marino here to go through the entire first round, all 32 picks. Boys, it is here. Guys being dudes on a Thursday night, making picks, doing a mock draft live here on YouTube and on Twitter. How are we feeling?
I'm stoked. I don't know about Joe. I know Joe always loves the feedback from social media, and I do as well. So make sure any complaints you have about mocks need to be forwarded to @ShoeRadio. And
Yes,
that way we will funnel all of your complaints into one spot, and they can be cataloged there by team and keep track of who we piss off the most.
Yeah, they'll be sorted by priority, and we'll make sure we get to them in a timely manner. I've already got people in my mentions when we were tweeting out the show that we were doing the show later today. People like, hey, can you get Matt Corral on my team? Hey, can you get Kenny Pickett on my team? So it already started. We haven't even made a pick yet, and it has already started. Ground rules for everybody. As you see on the bottom of your screen, the draft order cycling through, team needs cycling through, the clock in the corner for all the teams. 1 minute for the guys to discuss their thought process for the pick. And then they will make the pick. We'll talk about it, and then we will move on to the next teams. We have decided, and by we, I mean me, I have decided that Joe is going to be the odds, Kyle is going to be the evens for tonight's show, which means Joe is on the clock first with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Okay. You'll be seeing team needs for all these teams, best available, scrolling through. Henry has already decided that Joe is on the clock, so you've wasted 5 seconds for you there, Joe. So go ahead. You've had all day to think about it. You are on the clock with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Where are you going?
I've had all day to think about it, but I just found out literally 10 seconds ago that I was making the odd pick. So we're up here with the Jacksonville Jaguars. And Kyle, what's the theme? Hashtag get good
draft good players.
Yeah.
Oof,
and so
period.
It's interesting because the debate between Aiden Hutchinson and Kayvon Thibodeaux as edge one, I can see going either way. And I feel like the trendy pick lately has been Aiden Hutchinson. And for that reason, the pick is going to be Kayvon Thibodeaux, edge from Oregon. Will give them the explosive, dynamic edge rusher from Oregon, a really good run defender already, has a ceiling to be a really outstanding, dynamic defensive playmaker in the NFL. And so you could flip a coin on Hutchinson and Thibodeaux, but I feel like because Hutchinson has been such a trendy pick, let's just pivot, let's go the other direction and get this thing going weird all the way from the beginning.
Team Chaos right out of the gate, Kyle. He's gone Team Chaos on us here. He knew what everybody wanted him to do, and he went in a different direction. And by the way, I see all your comments on YouTube. Oh, and I see you calling out that this isn't like old times with me screen sharing a Google Doc and making picks. No, okay? It's 2022. No. It's a new year, new us, okay? We had to get the production value up here on the show. So that means, Kyle, Kayvon Thibodeaux off the board with pick number 1. Not necessarily sure you expected that. That means you are on the clock. The pick is now the Detroit Lions. You have 1 minute to take us through your thought process and make this next selection.
Well, the pick is in. I'm going to go ahead and write the name on the card. You can go ahead and we're just going to draft.
You know what? Just
players.
You could take you have a full minute. You could think about it.
It's not necessary with this one. It's drafting the best available player who happens to be a player at a premium position for the Detroit Lions makes all the sense in the world. They're a team that is effectively starting from scratch. You love the foundation and the fight that this team has shown this year. I think Joe said on Draft Dudes earlier this week, they were 1-6-1 in one-score contests and very competitive for many of the games throughout the course of the season. It's half the games they played. They've been in one-score contests, and they let a couple get away from them late. So you have the luxury of time, and because of that, I'm going to go ahead and select Aiden Hutchinson, the defensive end from Michigan. Works out well. Local kid, going to end up playing for the Detroit Lions, super blue-collar approach with his play style, high motor, all that jazz. He's a Michigan guy through and through, second generation Michigan Wolverine. Came back for his senior year to try and go out with a bang, and he accomplished that, and he helped his draft stock as a result. So Aiden Hutchinson is the slam dunk pick at number 2, with Joe kind of zigging when I expected him to zag.
Yeah, Lions fans maybe thought with their win over the Cardinals took them out of the race to take Aiden Hutchinson with the number 1 overall pick. Joe says, no, here you go. I'll leave him to you on the board at number 2. Kyle says, thank you very much. I will take Aiden Hutchinson. Joe, I believe the trend of hashtag draft good players that apply to the first 2 teams that we are talking about is going to continue to apply here for the Houston Texans. I've used up some of your time, but I don't think you're going to need all 1 minute for this. The Houston Texans.
Yeah, it's all about getting good players. There's no reason to force a quarterback, especially after what you've seen from Davis Mills this year, who's definitely held his head above water and shown some promise. And so I want to just pick the best player on the board, and I'll pick the number 1 player on Kyle Crabb's individual draft board now. The pick is in, folks. It's Kyle Hamilton, safety from Notre Dame. And Kyle, you said something a few weeks ago on Draft Dudes about this idea, and what really sells me on Hamilton as a player that makes a lot of sense for Houston is because of that division, because you have to deal with Indianapolis, you have to deal with Tennessee, teams that want to run the football, that have dynamic running backs in Derrick Henry as well as Jonathan Taylor, and having a player like Kyle Hamilton that can trigger and fit the run from deep alignments, that's going to be such a big asset for that football team and how they can space the field, how they can play defense, and obviously he's got range, he's got ball skills. He's a matchup neutralizer, and I think that he would be a great addition for any defense, but especially one in a division like the AFC South where you know that there's a couple of really good teams that want to run the football.
I think when we looked at the Houston Texans at the beginning of the season, quarterback was probably high up on the list. I think the emergence of Davis Mills, like you said, Joe, allows them to really open up the floor to any option. They can kind of let the board come to them at number 3. It ended up landing them a pretty darn good player with the 3rd pick. Kyle, we are back to you. You are picking for Jets Nation here. You are picking for the New York Jets with pick number 4. Okay, you have a full minute to think about this. You used, I think, 10 seconds for the Detroit Lions. Are you going to use at least a little bit more time for this one? Okay.
Use a little more. Yeah.
Right.
So obviously our options here, as you can see with the team needs across the bottom, pass rusher opposite Carl Lawson would make sense. Mekhi Becton, his availability this season has not been what the Jets would want it to be, and George Fant has played well at offensive tackle, and I know Morgan Moses has played reasonably well as well. They have a need at the cornerback position. But you used a number 2 overall pick in Zach Wilson, and his play this year has been okay. There's highs and lows, as you would expect with a rookie quarterback. I'm going to go ahead and turn the card in, and I'm going to use this pick here to invest in the best available player that is going to help Zach Wilson. And the reason why I'm comfortable doing that is I look at the depth of the edge class. I look at the depth of the corner class. These are 2 positions that have 12, 15, somewhere in that ballpark, players apiece in the TDN 100. And the Jets have, Chris, as you pointed out on Thursday's episode of Draft Dudes, you got a bunch of top 40 picks. So you're going to have opportunities to land really good players. So I am drafting Ikem Ekwonu, the offensive tackle from NC State. Mekhi Becton, if that investment does not pan and work itself out, what you can end up doing is still finding a way to have youth at offensive tackle, find a way to have your best combination of 5 offensive linemen on the field at the same time. Ekwonu, some people think, can be a guard. Maybe he starts at guard, and then if they do end up moving on from Morgan Moses, there's a transition to tackle in his future. Who knows? The point is you get a bunch of maulers and butt kickers up front for Zach Wilson.
Yeah, I will tell you, Kyle, there was a Jets fan in my mentions saying don't draft Kyle Hamilton or Derek Stingley with these 2 picks. So far, so good, Kyle. Kyle Hamilton off the board. You didn't take Stingley here, so the opportunity is aplenty. Let's stay in the same building, MetLife Stadium. We will go to the other New York team, although they, as Joe reminds me, and as one person is apparently suing the team about, they're the New Jersey Giants because they play in New Jersey. Yeah, so Joe, you can get on board with that movement. You are picking for this team. Hashtag draft good players, I think, still applies here for this team with pick number 5. The floor is yours.
Yeah, I think one of the best kept secrets in the NFL this year has been Andrew Thomas taking a big step forward and playing pretty well at left tackle for them. Now, that doesn't fix all of their offensive line needs, and I think they need to continue investing there. And with that in mind, the pick is in. We're going to go with Evan Neal, the offensive tackle from Alabama, a guy that can play on the right side. He has experience over there, so you don't have to disrupt Andrew Thomas. He can continue his development at left tackle. And now you have Evan Neal, who's just a rare combination of size, power, mobility, and I think that he can really elevate this team in terms of what he can do in pass protection, but also opening holes in the run game. And I think this can really elevate this offensive line. It's going to give Daniel Jones a real chance. I mean, this team has to figure out how to score some points and be better on offense. I think that starts by fixing this offensive line. I got a really high-quality, high-ceiling type player here in Evan Neal to jumpstart this offensive line rebuild once again.
We're not done with either of these 2 New York teams. They are coming up very shortly once again with picks need to be made to build out these teams. It'll be interesting to see what the Giants do. Probably a new voice in the room at general manager, potentially a new voice in the room at head coach. So a lot of things potentially could change the direction of this franchise. Kyle, you are on the clock with the next pick with the Carolina Panthers. My friend Joe would probably tell you, hey, they could use some offensive line help. So I just want to give you that piece of information while you consider your options here with the 6th pick. Just want to let you know that would be his suggestion.
Well, I appreciate that, but I don't know if you missed it, Chris, but the last 2 picks were both offensive tackles.
They were, yes.
Your opportunity to get best available player at that point is probably out the window. Now, if I were to consult Joe Marino's personal ballot for TDN 100, and then you factor in positional value and positions of need, there is a slam dunk selection to be made here for the Carolina Panthers, and I'm going to make it. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the card in. Mr. Commissioner.
Okay, card has been submitted to the people in the back room that put all this show together.
And on that card is written the name Kenny Pickett, quarterback, Pittsburgh. And the reason why is because this team has invested a crazy amount in trying to find a quarterback. Between the 3 for $63 they signed Teddy Bridgewater for, and he made it 1 year through that deal. And then they traded 2 of 4 plus for Sam Darnold, and they exercise his 5th-year option. So you're on the hook for that. I get it. It's probably not the most appealing thing to now invest a top 6 pick in a quarterback, but you have your choice of any quarterback on the board. Joe has made the point that Matt Rule, when in his college ranks, recruited Kenny Pickett to come play for the Temple Owls. So there's a pre-existing relationship that exists there. Who was was it Jordan Lynch, Joe, the defensive end from Baylor, that they made sure, like, we were all trying to tie them to Carolina, right? Like his pre-existing players that he knows through the recruiting process, those players are going to make sense for Carolina. And for Matt Rule and this team to have invested as much as they have, they don't have the firepower to go out and win a bidding war to trade for an established quarterback. They just don't. They've been investing heavily on the defensive side of the ball. So you get your pick of the litter in this year's class, guy you've got familiarity with, go ahead and put it down, Kenny Pickett.
We've talked a lot about the aggressiveness of David Tepper in pursuit of a quarterback, and that has kind of defaulted to potentially making a trade. I think something that people need to keep in mind that doesn't necessarily preclude the idea of them being aggressive with the 6th pick in the draft in getting a quarterback, right? Rankings be damned, they might potentially just take their guy like you did for them here with pick number 6. The chat, very shocked, Kenny Pickett off the board, QB1, Kyle. So I'm just saying, just the chat's over here on the Why? No, listen, Joe. You don't tell me. I know how you feel about him. 10th overall on his big board, so we know how Joe feels about him. Joe, you are back up here. You are picking for the New York Jets, who have already made a selection. Ekwonu is going to be there in New York protecting Zach Wilson. What else is not Joe Douglas, but Joe Marino adding to the Jets draft haul in 2022?
Kyle did a nice job of getting them some offensive line help with that first pick, and now we got to shift our attention to defense. We talked this week on Draft Dudes about how this Jets defense, the worst they've ever had, right? I mean, they're going to give up 500 points this year. I mean, just crazy amount of points, topping the abysmal defense that they had last year. I mean, they found a way to get worse, and that's got to be disappointing for Robert Saleh, defensive-minded head coach. I know that they were shorthanded with players being injured, Karloftis being out, and Marcus May not being available for the second half of the season. Can't forget about LaMarcus Joyner, who went down in week 1. But we got to get them some help on defense. The pick is in. It's George Karloftis, the edge from Purdue.
Whoa.
And, look, they need to get some help in the trenches. You want to build a defense, start up front. Get yourself a guy that can really wreak havoc, that can set the edge, that can power rush and really reduce rush angles and compromise the pocket. And I think that Karloftis is the type of player that would fit well into this scheme and give them a really nice building block to go with John Franklin Myers and Quinnen Williams and, hopefully the return of a healthy Carl Lawson, and you got something brewing there up front. I think that's been the problem with this defense. They're not winning up front.
2 more picks for the Jets in the top 40, like I mentioned a little bit earlier. So they've got a great foundation here with these 2 picks, and they got 2 more top 40 players potentially coming their direction. I like the way this has sorted out here, gentlemen. You've each got to make a pick for the New York teams. Kyle, it's your turn to make a selection for the New York Giants.
So the Giants, Chris, remind me what that hashtag was that we were talking about earlier.
Hold on. Let me just, I have it written down here. Hashtag draft good players.
Okay. I thought you actually had it written down. I was about to get real excited if you were going to pop up with a card. The best player available right now is Derek Stingley Jr. According to our consensus rankings at TDN, this was a player who in October and November was getting consideration to be player number 1 overall on our TDN 100 consensus rankings. We're going to go ahead and draft the best player available. I know Joe had mentioned when we did the Levy Grail for the New York Giants that James Bradbury, there's some potential cap savings there if they wanted to go that direction and hit reset. This isn't one of their most pressing needs, but regardless, I'm turning the card in. I want as much talent as I can possibly get, especially when you got to go into that Dallas passing defense. So put me down for Derek Stingley Jr., quarterback, LSU, as the pick for the New York Giants. I didn't want to reach on something, so I'm just going to take talent and let the chips fall where they may and let those guys compete and sort it out. And there's no such thing as too many good corners in the NFL.
No such thing as too many good players either. Draft good players, good things happen for you, and that's what the Giants have done. Their haul in the first round, Evan Neal and Derek Stingley Jr., not too shabby. Joe, we stay in the NFC East. You are now making a selection for the Washington football team. This is a popular landing spot for a potential quarterback. We know Kenny Pickett's no longer off the board, but the rest of the quarterback class at their disposal, they can pick any one of those guys. Are they going to do that in your mind, or are we going in a different direction here?
Yeah, we got to go with the quarterback here. The pick is in. It's going to be Matt Corral, quarterback from Ole Miss. And Washington's got to find a guy to move forward with. And Corral's a really interesting playmaker. He can win in a variety of ways. He's extremely creative. He's got good accuracy. And I think for that style of offense that they like to run, which features a lot of quick games, some deep shots, they like to get the quarterback moving, a lot of manufactured throws. I think it really meshes well with what Matt Corral brings to the table. And they've got some receiving talent there in Terry McLaurin and De'Ami Brown. And, hopefully Curtis Samuel gets himself healthy. Logan Thomas at tight end, some interesting running backs. I mean, they've got some pieces there on offense, but they don't have a real direction at quarterback. And, I feel like Taylor Heineke's proven that he's a perfectly reasonable backup. He can get you through a few games, but he's not your franchise. Give yourself a chance here to have a legitimate franchise quarterback in Matt Corral. And I think he can really fit well into this style of offense that we like to see from Scott Turner and what he's shown us in his career calling plays and designing offenses.
To the person who tweeted at me asking for Matt Corral to be on the Denver Broncos, I apologize on behalf of Joe Marino.
That's at
Shoe Radio. That's at Shoe Radio on Twitter to file your official complaint. We will get to it at a later time. Kyle, you are up next for the Atlanta Falcons, and I think this is a very interesting team to draft for because last year had a top 5 pick, chose not to go the quarterback route in a class that might have made sense for them to get that heir apparent to Matt Ryan. They go Kyle Pitts. Now they've seen 2 quarterbacks come off the board here. They still got Matt Ryan on the books for the next 2 seasons. What are you going to do here with the Atlanta Falcons?
Is there anybody asking in the comments for a quarterback? Have you heard from anybody that wants a quarterback for the Falcons?
Allow me to just check the chat real quick as they watch through the show. It does not appear that to be the case at the moment. So you would be safe if you don't go in that direction.
I'm not going to, so quit asking. I'm going to go ahead and turn the card in here, and it's somebody that Nick Saban's going to lose a lot of sleep over, making sure that he game plans for Jordan Davis, defensive tackle, Georgia Bulldogs. You think about what they have in Grady Jarrett and a penetration-style defender up front. They got Deion Jones as a linebacker on the second level. You put Jordan Davis next to Grady Jarrett, and you let him go watch the Michigan game and watch this dude surf down the line of scrimmage and hunt down off-tackle runs as a guy who's lining up over top of the center. His ability to impact the run game is phenomenal. I know he's not super sexy as a pass rusher, but you got that penetration 3-tech type. And the Falcons, I think they would really benefit not just in the trenches, but also on the second level of their defense to add Jordan Davis into the mix here. I know Tyler Davidson is a reasonable 1-tech alignment and nose tackle type player, but Jordan Davis is too good to pass up here, and I think he complements a couple of the star standout pieces for the Falcons on D.
All right, Joe, the Denver Broncos. There's nothing better than Joe trying to pair a team with a quarterback, and I feel like that trend's going to continue here. I think he's going to do it.
He absolutely is.
Let's put up the top available quarterbacks. Let's see if there's one that I like here for the Denver Broncos, because let's face it, it's their most pressing need. Defensively, this team's outstanding. They got really exciting young playmakers. What we need to find for them is a quarterback. And, oh, looky there, one that I like. Desmond Ridder, quarterback, Cincinnati, is going to be the pick here. And I love how he could fit into this football team. You know, they have Javonte Williams. They got some physical downhill run blockers, and they're going to want to be a team that's built on running the football. And you have that home field advantage up there in the altitudes in Denver where those teams are huffing and puffing in the fourth quarter. You unleash a guy like Javonte Williams, you're going to close out some ball games. And so I think that's going to be their identity when Denver's been on top of their wins, right? They've been a really good franchise. They've had that rushing attack. Now you get Desmond Ridder in here to add to it. He's a really good runner. He's a dual threat guy. He's a guy that can really add to your run game, but he also has a big-time arm. He can get the ball to Noah Fant and Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton and try to maximize this weaponry that you've built. And so I think that you're missing a quarterback that can be the facilitator, that can add to the dynamic ability to run the football. He's got the arm to push it down the field. I think this is the type of player that you can add in and build an offense that puts a lot of stress on defense in the ways that it can attack you.
I'll tell you what, gentlemen, the chat, there's been a movement in the chat. There is a groundswell of momentum. They wanted Malik Willis to come off the board here.
Got him a better quarterback. I got him a better quarterback.
Now listen, I'll tell everybody out there in the chat, if you're watching on Twitter, you're watching on YouTube, if you're a big fan of Malik Willis and you want to understand how good of a player this is, Draft Network YouTube channel, when you're done here, Chrissy started her QB video series of looking at every quarterback from the lens of, is this quarterback QB1? Malik Willis was the first quarterback that we looked at. That dropped today over on the YouTube channel. So if you want some Malik Willis content, you got it over on the Draft Network YouTube channel. Kyle, for you, it's a new man on the Minnesota Vikings. You get to make this selection here.
Stop.
You have
first and foremost, I'm thoroughly looking forward to Joe picking QB 15 in the first round here when we get to the end of this mock, since he's picking quarterbacks with every single selection.
So that's two so far, right, that he's picked. You took Kenny Pickett. That has given us 3 first-round quarterbacks?
Yes.
Okay. Just making sure we've got
the top 11.
Yeah. Chat didn't like that either, by the way.
So what are there may be a regime change here in Minnesota. This team is kind of, it feels like it's hit a bit of a plateau. But I would ask Chris, you or Joe, what the certainties in life are.
Death and taxes.
Death and taxes.
What else?
Would be the
There's
two.
one more.
And the Minnesota Vikings drafting cornerbacks.
Thank you very much. And that's exactly where we're going. Andrew Booth Jr. is on the board for the Minnesota Vikings. I'm turning in the card. It's got Andrew Booth Jr.'s name written down on it. Listen, you got Pat Pete, right? You drafted Cameron Dantzler. You've made some recent investments in the cornerback position. I get it. But at the same time, if Davante Adams is going to stick around, I really like Andrew Booth's potential to develop into a top-flight cornerback at the NFL level. And until Mike Zimmer is gone, I'm going to continue to operate under the assumption that those certainties in life of death, taxes, and the Vikings drafting corners is going to continue. And therefore, Andrew Booth is my pick here at 12 for the Vikings.
I'll tell you what, I'm going to need our analytics department to look into who made their picks the quickest on the show, because I think Kyle so far has left extra time on the table for all 32 teams with how quickly
Joe
he's
keeps
turning
making
the
it
card.
easy on me.
Well, Joe, not necessarily a team I think you can continue the quarterback theme with, although maybe the Cleveland Browns are on the card.
No. You know what? Look, give me the top wide receivers. Let me see who the top wide receivers available are, because look, Baker Mayfield was pretty loud today about his willingness to stay in Cleveland, and he's going to shame you if you think that there's any chance that he's going to request a trade. And if he's going to stick in Cleveland, or if anyone's going to come and play quarterback in Cleveland, you better find some guys in the passing game for them to throw the football to, because, for as bad as Baker has played this year while he's hurt and his offensive line's hurt and he doesn't have the full complement of running backs and he doesn't have any receivers to throw to, it's no wonder he hasn't played well. So let's get Baker or whoever's going to play quarterback in Cleveland a wide receiver. I see wide receiver 1 still on the board. Jamison Williams from Alabama. He's the pick here. He's a guy that obviously has the downfield ability. He's been dynamic all year long with his ability to win vertically. And then against Cincinnati in the semifinals, you saw him do a little bit more of that underneath stuff and be able to work the intermediate and short areas of the field and work after the catch. I think he's a do-everything guy that's going to create separation, that's going to create explosive plays. And it's a good start for Cleveland because they need help at wide receiver. They got a chance to get wide receiver 1 here in Jamison Williams and give their quarterback a chance to start making some plays in the passing game.
So is he going to convert to quarterback then, or what? How's that going to work?
No, receiver.
Name something Joe loves more than asking the production crew to put up the graphic of what position.
Listen, I know everyone's
available.
worked hard on him. I want to give him a chance to be unleashed. Come on. It was on a tee there. It was wide receiver 1. I wanted to make it work.
Okay, Kyle. We're going to be talking about this team a lot tonight. This is the first of their 3 selections that they will be making in the first round. And don't ask me how many of them you are going to be making, because I can't do that. Draft dudes do math. We're not doing that here on the show. You are up for the first time.
Only one.
With the
It's the only one.
You only get them once. Okay, so it's the only time you get
them once.
To put your spice onto the Philadelphia Eagles roster. Your opportunity to do so here with pick number 14.
The pick is in. I'm going to go ahead and turn in the card.
Since
we're going to turn this into a big old thing, I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I am emphatic with turning the card in. David Ojabo, the edge rusher from Michigan. I think about this Philadelphia defense, and they've had a lot of really successful pass rushers, and they got Josh Sweat. And I think about all the things that make Josh Sweat a dangerous pass rusher off the edge. And I turn all those traits up to an 11 out of 10. And that's what I think David Ojabo can be with time, but he's got to get a little bit more seasoning. He's still a little rough around the edges, but the flashes that he has as a pass rusher are absolutely phenomenal. And he's considered the other pass rusher for the Michigan Wolverines, but don't mistake him for a consolation prize because he's an athletic freak. He's super long. He's super twitched up. He's got a real nice inside spin move that he flashes from time to time, can win with speed off the edge, can convert speed to power. There's a lot to like here with David Ojabo, and I love him going to Philadelphia in a situation where you can be patient with him. You doesn't have to start him and play him 80% of the snaps right away. You got some depth there at the defensive end position, some expiring contracts coming up over the next 2 years. You can wean him in and really develop him, and I think you'll get the best version of him.
I got to tell you, I love the way this order has broken down here, because if there's one fan base that loves hearing from Joe Marino about what their team does, it's the New Orleans Saints. So we can continue moving this train along here. Pick number 15, the New Orleans Saints. Go ahead, Joseph. This is your opportunity. This is you can make good. You can work with the people of New Orleans here.
You know what's funny is back in, was it 2018 or 17, whenever that was, I started doing like weekly radio in Louisiana. And so I'm well acquainted with the fan base down there and the outstanding radio hosts. And we've talked a lot about the Saints' needs. And we came to an agreement that this team's got to find some wide receiver help. And so the pick is in. We're going with Ohio State wide receiver Chris Olave. And I like what Kyle said this week on Draft Dudes. We were doing New Year's resolutions for all the teams, and Kyle made the point that the New Year's resolution for the Saints should be to bring back Jameis Winston. And I like that. Bring back Jameis Winston, but let's get him some guys to throw the football to. Hopefully Michael Thomas can come back. But even if he does, you still have to have more options. I think this team has been really risky with not having more complementary weapons at receiver outside of Michael Thomas. And so Chris Olave, 4.3 speed, can win down the field. He's a good route runner. He's a good separator, outstanding hands, outstanding ball skills. I think he can be a really nice option opposite of Michael Thomas and give this Saints passing game a little bit more firepower.
You're doing okay, Joe. I don't see any complaints in the chat yet, so you're just fine over in that regard. We've reached the midway point with this next pick of the first round of our live mock draft here on Twitter and YouTube. And Kyle, it is your pick with the Baltimore Ravens.
Here's the card.
He's got a prop now.
Turned in the card.
3 seconds into being able to make the pick, he already knows what he's doing. Okay, go ahead.
Listen, the Baltimore Ravens, first of all, it's very odd seeing them picking in this mid-teens range when you consider the success that this team has consistently had. But as you see here, what the team needs, some trench play for them. Corner play is also worth consideration. As I said, that edge position, it's a deep class. That corner position, it's a deep class. But I look at Texas A&M defensive lineman DeMarvin Leal at 290 pounds. And think about projecting him into this Baltimore front where you've got Justin Madubuike, who was a third-round pick a couple years ago. Calais Campbell's getting a little long in the tooth. And if you give DeMarvin Leal the opportunity to work with Calais Campbell and develop himself as a talent, the sky is the limit. You see some of the athletic plays that Leal makes on tape, and it doesn't make sense for a 290-pound kid to be able to do this. And I really like that projection of Leal as a guy who can play in a 4-eye. He can play base end. You can move him around in pass rush situations if you want. You can try to find mismatch and one-zone-ones that you think is an advantageous opportunity for you to unleash him as an athlete inside. And I think you let this kid develop a little bit, and he's going to be a really, really talented player. All the physical tools are there. It's just a matter of him putting it all together. And I would trust Baltimore as much as anybody else to do that.
Joe, if you want, I can just put a quarterback in here for Pittsburgh, and we can just keep moving, and Kyle can make his next pick if that's something that you're interested in. No, not so.
He gave you the Mutombo.
I got a little Lee Corso too. Not so fast, my friend.
You got them all right there in one shot. We're not going quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers because, folks, we ran out of quarterbacks that I would pick in the first round. And so, spoiler. Wow, did I really just say that? Here's what we got to do for Pittsburgh. We got to get real serious about continuing to fix this offensive line. And they made some strides. They got a couple of players in Dan Moore, as well as the Illinois center, whose name escapes me at this current time. But they need more. They need a right tackle.
Kendrick Green.
And, yeah, thank you. I know that Pittsburgh typically doesn't pick small school guys, but I think Trevor Penning from Northern Iowa just kind of fits what they need at right tackle, a big physical mauler in the run game. And you just made a big investment in Najee Harris. You want to run the football. That's going to be your identity. Go ahead and get yourself a right tackle like Trevor Penning who can move bodies and really change the dynamics of that offensive line and give yourself a chance to maximize that run game and, of course, improve in pass protection to usher in whoever's going to play quarterback next year for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Wow. Kyle, your thoughts?
He left my guy on the board. I've got the clock ready to
tell you.
I'm not even on the clock yet.
He left the Chats guy on the board, too, because they were screaming at him when he made that pick. So, okay. The Las Vegas Raiders.
Penning is a good player, though. I think, to be fair to Trevor Penning, he's a really good offensive tackle prospect. And I think what Joe is saying makes a lot of sense. I was just surprised he didn't go a different direction on the offensive line. That's all. And it's a player.
Could you potentially,
right now?
I was just going to say, could you potentially be going in that direction for the Las Vegas Raiders? You know what, Henry? I don't even think you need to put up the 1 minute clock. You can just say this. Just tell me the pick is in. Yeah, go ahead, Kyle.
Kendrick Green, offensive lineman, Texas A&M. He's played inside. He's played outside because he's their best offensive lineman. You think about the Raiders and the overhaul that this offensive line has experienced, and they've experienced with Alex Leatherwood inside at offensive guard after starting him at offensive tackle, and Richie Incognito at the end of his career, and they lost Rodney Hudson at center, and like they've really struggled to consistently run the football this year. And I'm gonna tell you right now, that ain't gonna be a problem with Kenyon Green lined up. Just run behind him, and you're gonna be just fine. And I really like the opportunity to take him, plug him at left guard next to Colton Miller. Let's go ahead and get ourselves a power center next, and we are going to be back to cooking with gas with Josh Jacobs running the football. This might have been the easiest card turn-in I've had so far.
It's interesting. This is not a player from Clemson or Alabama drafted by the Raiders in the first round.
Big program. Big program.
Under Mike Mayock. I'm a little surprised here. Joe, it is your opportunity to leave your mark on the Philadelphia Eagles draft class. It was David Ojabo, the pick for Kyle earlier with pick number 13. You here have the selection with pick number 19.
I want to get them a weapon for this offense. I want to go Treylon Burks, wide receiver from Arkansas.
Oh, okay.
Devontae Smith looks like a nice player for them, and I think they need another guy opposite of him. And Treylon Burks can really give them a guy that can win on those glance routes in the RPO game. He can win down the field, and he's just a bigger-bodied guy to really flesh out what they have and provide a complementary skill set at wide receiver to go with Devontae Smith. And so looks like you have something here in Jalen Hurts. You like the direction of this team. They've really achieved more than I think a lot of people thought they would this year. Now let's keep building. Let's see where this can go, and let's give Jalen Hurts another option in the passing game. And I think Burks is a really nice complementary option, especially when you think about the RPO game.
An edge and a wide receiver with their first two selections here of three that they are going to have here tonight on the live mock draft. Kyle, we are into the 20s now. Pick number 20 belongs to you, and it is the Los Angeles Chargers, so you get to make a selection for.
Yeah, go Chargers, go, right? So, tell you what, Henry, can you do me a favor and pull up the best available talents for me? I'd love
you just not a specific position. You just want all of them. Just give me the full list.
Just go ahead and let me see the list of best available players for the. So you got Devin Lloyd, linebacker, and I know they have been moving Kenneth Murray around a little bit, who was a first-round pick not that long ago. Linderbaum, they just spent big-time money on Corey Linsley. Charles Cross plays left tackle, big-time pass protector. But you got Rashawn Slater there. Okay. Thank you, Henry. I'm good. I'm going to go ahead and turn the card in now, and I filibustered long enough so that Chris wouldn't give me a hard time for turning my card in right away. The other offensive tackle spot is where my attention lies. Now, right now, it's Riley Reif. Is it Riley Reif or Brian Brulaga? It's Brian Brulaga, excuse me. And he's on IR. And he's struggled to stay healthy. And you hit a home run by drafting a Big Ten offensive tackle with your first-round pick in the 2021 draft. We're going to go ahead and do the same thing here, and we're going to draft Ohio State's Nicholas Petit-Frere with this selection at pick number 20. He's played right tackle. He's played left tackle. You've got positional versatility. I can tell you he's big. He's physical. He moves very well. I like his movement skills in the run game. I like his ability to extend and make a really steep angle for pass rushers to turn on him. They moved him around a little bit. He was playing some right tackle this year and intermittently for a series, and then he'd go back to left tackle where he was playing predominantly, and they kicked their Munford out when he went over to right tackle. So, didn't have necessarily a ton of consistency, but the fact that he's been cross-trained in both spots and he started all of 2020 at right tackle, I love the opportunity to just take the best offensive tackle available, knowing that he has experience playing right tackle. And then that way, Justin Herbert can get the best protection he possibly can as he looks to continue to grow and develop as a franchise quarterback.
All right, Joe. You just selected Treylon Burks for the Philadelphia Eagles. You get to make another pick here for this team to round out their first-round draft class. You've probably thought about it. You're probably ready to turn the card in. Where are we going with this one?
I so badly want to pick Devin Lloyd for them. So badly. And I wish that you wouldn't have went off of Kyle's face there so I could see how he would have responded if I would have made that the pick. Because that would have been so disruptive in so many ways because he's a great pick for the team that's next. We know that the Eagles don't care about linebackers, and so I have to remind myself of that. Let's go with the premium position. We're going Sauce Gardner, cornerback from Cincinnati. Darius Slay's played a lot better. He had 2 down seasons. He's found himself this year. I think Steven Nelson is a reasonable player opposite of him, but I think they're going to need to replace him in free agency, or they might lose him. They're going to need another option, and I think they need some more talent in this secondary. There's some good receivers in the NFC East, obviously, with what Dallas is doing. Terry McLaurin's there, and so you need to have plenty of guys that can cover, and I think Sauce Gardner has the foot speed, the hips, the length, the physicality, the stickiness in coverage to really be an outstanding starter at the next level, and he was a guy that wasn't highly recruited out of high school, and he winds up being a big-time starter, one of the best corners in the game on one of the best defenses in college football at Cincinnati. And so I think there's a lot of value, and it fits a need in my mind for this Eagles defense.
Kyle, I saw somebody mention in the chat, and I almost said it, but now that somebody reminded me of it, I brought it up again. You could have had Nicholas Petit-Frere wherever you wanted in this first round because Joe wouldn't have taken him because the pronunciation would have scared Joe away.
Right.
He's
never
so you would have been good.
Never
never
going to say his name.
That was never going to be a selection for Joe, so you were good. You could have just made that pick whenever you wanted. You get to pick for your own team here now, Kyle. Pick number 22, the Miami Dolphins are on the clock. Where would you like to go? Joe kind of hinted at a direction that you might go if that player is still on the board. Are you going to go in that direction?
Yeah, so as you look at team needs here, you could probably just put everything down on the offensive side of the ball as a team.
Yeah, we don't have enough room for that on the graphic.
Yeah, I know. Maybe we get a scroll for next time or something. I don't know.
Okay.
But
sure.
The point being, Devin Lloyd would be an excellent choice. And my personal philosophy for the Dolphins and how they're going to approach this offseason, I would not be investing high draft picks in offensive linemen because your criteria that you have used to select offensive linemen early has not yielded positive results. So therefore, I would advocate for going out and signing a big-time name in free agency and potentially taking a draft selection and trading one for an established player. That's how I would probably choose to advocate it. But the pick is in. We don't have free agency in this mock draft, and therefore, I don't have that luxury. And as we continue to look at this offensive line and the hot mess that it is, I've got a player that I've evaluated for myself. He breaks some of the trends and molds of what the Dolphins have traditionally pursued. They like a lot of size up front. But at this point in the draft, at 22, Tyler Linderbaum, the center from Iowa, is appropriate positional value in my mind. He's a phenomenal weapon. You look at all these big guys they have on the offensive line, and none of them can get out into space and get out in front of the screen game or climb to the second level with any level of consistency, except for Robert Hunt because he just mauls guys and does it with consistency. Linderbaum's an athlete. He's around 290 pounds. Does that scare me a little bit? Maybe. But you got big bumpers around him, and I think you could still play Michael Dieter, who played center this year, back at left guard where he played his rookie season. He's got cross-train flexibility. I think they'll probably look to work Liam Eichenberg back at right tackle based on some of the conversations that I've had over the last couple of weeks. In the long term, Tyler Linderbaum, athletic weapon on the offensive line, best available offensive lineman on my personal board. He graded very close to a top 10 valuation as a player, but from a positional value perspective, I think this is where he makes sense.
The chat being very supportive of you, Kyle, shouting you out for going with a player that is your brand in making this selection. Joe, we stay in the AFC East. It's the New England Patriots, and there could be some needs on the defensive side of the ball, or potentially we get some wide receiver help for our young quarterback. And I say our, not our for any of the three of us, but we are now acting as the New England Patriots in this scenario. We might need to surround our young quarterback with some talent. Which side of the ball are we going to address here?
We're going to go defense. I think that they can find some receiver talent in the middle rounds and add to what they have. But there's a player that really just pops for me, and that's linebacker Devin Lloyd from Utah. And let's face it, Deontay Hightower has not played well.
Can I go back?
Way to go, Kyle. Way to go, Kyle. This is all your fault. You've now left Devin Lloyd in the AFC East, and we have to play him a combined 6 times a year. Thanks, Kyle.
They need, they might need another guy too at linebacker. And I think this is kind of a missing piece of that defense. And like, this has been such an important player for Belichick, whether it's Gerard Mayo or Deontay Hightower when he's been on his game. Like, he's always had that very reliable Mike linebacker. And I think that they need to find their next guy. And I think at this point in the draft, it's just incredible value. He's a 3-down player. He's physical downhill. can play into the line of scrimmage. He can blitz. He can play in coverage. He's just a really dynamic football player that I think is a tailor-made selection for what they would love to have at that Mike spot and give him their next guy to move forward with.
I don't even want to continue after what Kyle just did by allowing Devin Lloyd to get to the New England Patriots.
I didn't do it. Joe didn't have to pick him.
Oh, don't do this. Don't put this on your friend. You could have just picked him at 22, made a ton of sense for your team. We wouldn't have been in this mess. Now here we are. Kyle, the Arizona Cardinals are now on the clock. What are we going to surround Cliff Kingsbury, Kyler Murray? Are we going to probably add to the defensive side of the ball would be my guess here, but okay, no, never mind.
No, we're going to lean into the skid, man. This is an offensive football team with offensive DNA and Cliff Kingsbury as their head coach. You can see some of their primary needs there were cornerback, edge, especially if Chandler Jones ends up moving on this offseason, the running back position. Nah, I'm not taking any of them. Somewhere out there, I'm going to make Vontel real happy because the pick is in. I'm turning in the card, and it's got Zion Johnson, the interior offensive lineman from Boston College's name on it. And I think the opportunity to get a really good offensive lineman, this is another guy that has positional flexibility. He's played left tackle. He's played guard. I really like him as a scheme diverse and position diverse type talent on the inside. The Cardinals don't really have a lot of talent to lean on in that interior offensive line. I'm going to change that, and we're going to make sure our identity remains our identity by investing in the offense here early on.
Just put more chips in the middle on offense. Don't worry about that defense. We'll figure that out later. All in on the offense. Joe, I love the way this has worked out for both you and Kyle. Kyle got to make a pick for the Miami Dolphins. You get to make a pick for the Buffalo Bills with selection number 25 here in the first mock draft of 2022.
Yeah, did I take your player?
You knew exactly what you were doing. I had a great speech prepared about Zion Johnson and a transfer and working his way up and fitting the Bills mold. But no, you had to pivot from the corner tendency that you've always given us with Arizona just because I gave Devin Lloyd to the Patriots. Yeah, I know. I've known you for a long time. I knew exactly what you did there as soon as you said Zion Johnson. We're still going to go offensive line. I'm committed to the trenches for the Buffalo Bills, and I think it's very important for them to invest there, even though they've invested a lot. We're going to go with Darian Kinnard, the interior offensive lineman for Kentucky. Big physical guy. The Bills want to jumpstart this run game. They want to make sure that Josh Allen is protected. And I think he's a guy that can settle into one of those guard spots and give the Bills an option, right? He's a little bit raw, but they have gotten by with a raw player with Spencer Brown at right tackle. I think this is a type of player that can make them more physical up front, and I think that's what this Bills offense needs as they embrace, kind of playing in those elements and playing meaningful games late in the season where they're going to need to run the football. A guy like Darian Kinnard could really open up some space in that running game.
Okay. We have to – listen, there's a lot of animosity between the group right now because of the way the last couple of picks have gone. We have to get together as a group and hit a home run on the next pick because the Cincinnati Bengals are on the clock with the next selection. The boss is in the chat. If we do not take, and by we, I mean Kyle, if this is not an offensive lineman, we may not be doing another one of these. So I just want to let you know, Kyle, that you're on the clock. Cincinnati Bengals, the boss is watching. Can you please take an offensive lineman so we can continue to do this as a group?
Garrett Wilson's still out there, so.
No, Kyle, don't do this. This is exactly what they did last year. Please, I'd like to continue doing this as a group.
All right. The pick is in. I'm going to turn the card in. And I cannot fathom that Charles Cross, the offensive tackle from Mississippi State, is still here and on the board. That is going to be my choice, Charles Cross. Really, really good in pass pro. And Cincinnati, I know you got Jonah Williams. He's probably a guy you can move him around. I wouldn't lose too much sleep over it. This is where Riley Reif is. I tried to tie him to the Chargers, but he's in Cincinnati now. He's also on IR. So you just need as many talented offensive linemen as you can get. And the decision to pass on Penei Sewell for Jamar Chase has been a very productive player. He may end up winning Offensive Rookie of the Year this year. Who knows? But for the long-term benefit of Joe Burrow, we need to make the decision now that we didn't make last year. Charles Cross, really, really good in pass pro. And this team's going to continue to throw the football, right? Joe Burrow, these offensive weapons that he has, it makes it a very straightforward selection for me to make. And I'm picking Charles Cross, and that's my story. I'm sticking to it, and I would have done it even if Paige wasn't here.
Well, listen, I believe you, but we need to keep the train moving here, and I'd like to continue to do these mock drafts very, as often as possible. And so making this selection probably allows us to do that. Okay, Joe, back to the NFC East. The Dallas Cowboys are on the clock with pick 27.
There's a popular pick that I see in a lot of mock drafts, and I'm just going to make it here because I think it makes a lot of sense, and that's safety Jaquan Brisker for Penn State. I just think this defense running a lot of cover 3. They would love to have a guy like Brisker as that middle third defender. His range would be sufficient there, and we know that this is a big play defense, right? They get tackles for loss and they get turnovers, and Brisker's the type of guy that could be that ball hawk in the middle of the field to kind of build upon the style of defense that they're developing, right? They give up some plays, they give up some yards, but they also have negative plays. They also get turnovers, and Brisker just kind of fits that mold. He's a guy that can tackle and play downhill, but it's that middle of the field presence in terms of his intelligence and coverage and the ball production that I think would really mesh well with this Dallas Cowboys defense.
The defending Super Bowl champions are up next here with pick number 28. Kyle, what are we going to add to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? It's a team that we have talked about a lot on Draft Dudes. It's been Joe's position of, listen, they're not going to be able to run this back again, right? It's just not going to be possible. So you got to start infusing some younger talent into this mix because guys are going to leave in free agency. So where are we going to go with this selection? We don't know who's going to leave in free agency in this scenario that we're playing out right now, but we're going to have to take some educated guesses.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and drop the pads, throw up the deuces, and put the card in with wide receiver Garrett Wilson on it. We decided that we were going to part ways with Antonio Brown after the saga that took place with him walking off the field mid-game, taking the Vontae Davis retirement to a whole new level as far as leaving your team. You think about Chris Godwin is an expiring contract as well, and all of a sudden this very deep position room, and they've got young players that are contributing right now, and I think it's worth acknowledging those players. But Garrett Wilson in an environment where you potentially bring back Chris Godwin, you've got Mike Evans, you can play him in the slot, which is where I think he is going to be at his best at the next level, and be a guy who can manufacture a lot of space just because of all the things that Tom Brady is going to do to threaten all the areas of the field, and that's going to really weaponize his run after catch ability. And all of that in mind, this is too good of a fit for me to pass up. I really love this fit for Tampa Bay. Garrett Wilson, wide receiver, Ohio State, going to Tampa Bay to play with Tampa Tom.
The team that Tampa Bay beat in that Super Bowl, Kansas City Chiefs, the next team up for us to pick for. And Joe, you get that honor to pick for a team that's been a thorn in your side over the last couple of years. So I'm sure you just love helping them out by making a selection.
Weren't too thorny in week 6 this year, but hey, listen, this Chiefs, this you put it on a plate for me, Chris. I mean, what am I supposed to do? This Chiefs defense started really slow this year, and a big reason why was because they were playing Chris Jones at edge, and they moved him back inside, and it's kind of his natural spot. Well, the need for help on the edge hasn't gone away. It just can't be Chris Jones, and so the player that I think would give them what I think they thought they were getting in Chris Jones on the edge is Georgia defensive end Trayvon Walker, who's a big body guy, a lot of length, a powerful player, and a guy that just kind of fits what this defense is and the type of style that they have, their gap control type defense up front. And this is a player that is going to be a good run defender that can really reduce and push the pocket and give them a really dynamic complementary option to go with Chris Jones on that defensive line. And so I think if they want to keep this defense where it's at now and not go back to what we saw last year or at the beginning of this season, they need to get this defensive line right. Frank Clark's been a disappointment. I think Trayvon Walker's a really good pick here at the end of the first round.
Kyle, remember way back, I would say, 50 minutes ago or so, you had the number 2 pick in tonight's live mock draft for 2022. Yeah. And you, with the next team up, the Detroit Lions, you took Aiden Hutchinson. You now, 20-something picks later, get to add a player to that draft class. The floor is yours.
Yeah. As you see here, primary needs that are listed. We took care of an edge already, but you have quarterback and cornerback. And this is a team that drafted Jeff Okudah very highly not that long ago. Okudah hasn't lived up to that potential just yet. But again, going back to the central theme of the first selection, I am just looking to draft really good players. And I'm not super worried about filling needs at this point. I just want to make sure I'm securing best possible talent and let the chips fall where they may. So with that in mind, I'm going to turn the card in, and I'm going to draft a player, a defender, who I think is really up Dan Campbell's alley as far as being a scrappy, physical player who plays super hard. He does play a premium position, and it's cornerback Roger McCreary from the Auburn Tigers. Auburn's defense and their program in general did not have the season that is up to standard for them, but don't blame Roger McCreary for it. He is very, very scrappy. He's not the longest corner, but he's super physical in coverage, and I love what he put on tape this year. And I think him going to Detroit really makes a lot of sense. I think he's a relatively coverage diverse talent as well, whether you're playing in zone or man predominantly. And we've got to worry about, again, Davante Adams in that division until he shows otherwise by not getting franchise tagged and being allowed to go find somewhere else.
The last two selections here for you guys, and the last two selections of the first round of our first mock draft of the year, we finish in the AFC with you, Joe, the Tennessee Titans with pick number 31.
Yeah, I'm going to go with wide receiver Drake London out of USC for them. And I think their lack of depth at receiver this year has been a problem. I know that they're number one seed right now in the AFC, but I think kind of gambling with Julio Jones and his injury history and A.J. Brown, a really physical receiver that is going to lend himself to some injuries. They need to have more there in this passing game. And I think Drake London is a tall, big-bodied guy that's explosive, that runs better routes than you expect for a guy that has the type of body composition that he does, terrific ball skills. And I think he can kind of add to this mismatched style of offense that Tennessee has where, you have big physical receivers, you have Derrick Henry. If you want to play small against this team, you're going to be in trouble. I think Drake London just kind of continues to add to their identity, but helps them have more depth and more options in this offense so that they can withstand an injury or two if somebody goes down. I know they weathered the storm pretty well this year, but I think they need more at wide receiver. Drake London gives them that. I know that he's banged up right now, but Tennessee hasn't been shy about picking banged up players in the first round. And, Jeffrey Simmons has really turned out for them. And hopefully Caleb Farley will do the same once he comes back. So Drake London, I think, could really elevate this passing game and give them more options.
The last selection here for us tonight on this show, the Green Bay Packers with pick number 32. And Kyle, this is not something that we have talked about, but it's a question that I was thinking about when knowing that I needed to transition to you for this last pick. You're making this selection kind of in the dark about what the quarterback situation is going to be. Are you drafting a player assuming Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback, or are you making a selection thinking that it's going to be Jordan Love under center next season?
So I'm making the selection in a way in which I think it's going to benefit the Packers regardless. This is not an easy spot to be picking, and I would have loved to have picked Trayvon Walker, who Joe picked a couple of picks ago to the Chiefs. So you get the last laugh. Good for you. Can't wait for you to be evens next time so I can snipe one from you here at the end of the draft. But you think about Brian Gutekunst and what he does from a roster building position, and I look at that number 2 team need that's listed there, the offensive tackle position. And this is a team that has Billy Turner, who's your starting right tackle. He has been for a while. I think that's an upgrade opportunity for you. And you look at the best available offensive tackles. Tell you what, Henry, can you pull up best available offensive tackles here for me one last time?
It is funny that you mentioned this. The best available board broke the moment you didn't take Devin Lloyd with the pick that you were supposed to take. That is the exact moment we can pinpoint that that is the exact moment that the board broke. You didn't do what you were supposed to do, and now everything's broken. So no, you don't get a best available board. You got to do this blindly.
I have the pick. I just wanted to entertain the pick.
Well, nope, no entertainment.
Green Bay. Here's regardless of whether or not it's Aaron Rodgers or it's Jordan Love. Like, the two leading touch getters in the Green Bay offense are A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones. They are a very running back centric offense right now. They're very high frequency in both the screen game and in RPOs. And I think about an offensive tackle who played in a similar offensive system that was very heavy in RPOs at the college level. And it's Daniel Falele, the offensive tackle from Minnesota. And if you were going to take a guy who's 6'8", 380 pounds, who plays in an RPO-heavy offense, and that's one of the primary concerns with him is, well, he doesn't take a lot of true pass sets. Great. You're going to go to one of the most RPO and screen-heavy offenses in all of football. He's very much a Gutenkais-type pick because he plays in the trenches, upgrade opportunity, playing a premium position. He's a phenomenal athlete for his stature. Think about all the things that went right with Jordan Maitala in Philadelphia. And Daniel Falele is kind of the same deal. He had offers from like every major college program before he ever played a snap of American football. He is a very, very impressive athlete. I'm looking forward to seeing him at Senior Bowl. I think he's got a lot of upward mobility in his draft stock, and he's going to be the pick here for the Packers.
Guy can also get into the end zone. Watch him score a touchdown in the Guaranteed Rate Bowl a couple of weeks
Throwing
ago.
or running, because he had a touchdown throw in the spring game too.
So you want to talk about, being able to be versatile, moving around in the offense. You got that at your disposal as well. That's it, guys. That's it. First mock draft of 2022. We have made 32 selections here on the show. We'll flip the order for next time. To be fair to everybody, Joe will do the odds and Kyle, you can do the evens. Or, I'm sorry, flip it. Kyle, you can do whatever the opposite of what we did tonight is.
Not a math guy.
That's what we'll do. Draft dudes do math. You don't want us to do that. So that's what will happen next time here when we reconvene for another mock draft. But expect a lot more of these here as draft season underway. We got the Senior Bowl, the Shrine Bowl coming up, all of these events. So we will have more of these for you in the future. You want more draft content? You guys know where to go, thedraftnetwork.com. Subscribe to our YouTube page here where you're watching us. Follow us on Twitter. Lots of video content coming your way surrounding the draft. And then the three of us draft dudes, 5 days throughout the week, you can listen to us talk about the draft. For Kyle Crabbs, for Joe Marino, I'm Chris Schubert. Thanks to all of you for hanging out with us tonight. We will talk to you guys next time.